Good afternoon, students. I'd like to discuss Chapter 11, which is bonds payable, with you this afternoon. Bonds are considered a notes payable, but they have a long-term maturity value associated with them. So usually bonds will be 10 or 15 years, and they'll pay interest semi-annually. So that if a corporation, let's say, needs $5 million to continue operations, and they go to a bank, that bank is at risk of losing $5 million. But instead, if they decide to do a bond issue, and usually bonds are in $1,000 increments, they would be issuing $5,000, $1,000 bonds, and those bonds would pay interest semi-annually. But there was an opportunity then for 5,000 different individuals to buy the bonds, so that the individual's risk is a lot less than that of a bank if they were to loan them the full $5 million. So what a corporation would have to do is that I could go and buy bonds off the market, and if I pay $1,000 for them, and they're promising me 8% interest semi-annually, then I would take the let's say I give them the full $5 million just to make the example easier, then I would take $5 million times 8%, but then it's paid twice a year, so it would be 6 over 12, which would be half. So half times 8% would be 4%, and so 4% times $5 million would be $200,000. So I would receive interest of $200,000 every 6 months for the life of the bond. So if it was a 10-year bond, I would receive $200,000 every 6 months for 10 years, or twice a year for 20 payments of $200,000. And then at the end of those 10 years, I would receive the $5 million back. So that's how a bond works. A bond can be sold at face value, which is if it's a $1,000 bond, it means they receive $1,000 for the bond. It can be sold at a discount, which means that if it's a $1,000 bond, they are not going to receive the bond full amount of $1,000. It's like the bonds being on sale. So they're going to receive less than the face value. And what dictates the amount they receive is the interest rate on the bond versus the interest rate in the marketplace. So if the interest rate on my bond is 5% and the interest rate in the marketplace is 6%, who wants my bond? No one, because they can make 6% in the market and my bond is only selling at 5%. So what I have to do is drop the price of my bond so that the person buying it, or the people buying it, or the institution buying it will receive a net amount of 6% return on their investment. And that is considered a discount, bond sold at a discount. Now the other situation can exist also, where a bond is selling at a premium, which means people want to buy my bond, so they're going to pay more than the face value of $1,000. So what happens in this case then, if my bond is selling at 5%, but all the other bonds in the marketplace are selling at 4%, then everyone wants my bond because it's paying 5% instead of 4%. The demand is going to drive the price of the bond up, so I'm going to receive more than $1,000 for each bond. When you read the chapter, this will be a lot clearer, and hopefully you've already read the chapter, so this is making a lot of sense to you. How we handle the premiums and the discounts, I'm going to illustrate for you in a couple exercises in the next video. And then the other thing I want to mention is that there are bonds that are callable, which means that I have a 10-year bond that I've issued, and after 3 years, I want to call all the bonds in because, let's say, the interest rate has dropped and my bond is paying much more than the market rate. So I am going to call my bonds in and pay a callable price that I have set at the head of time and pay that out. Now, if I end up paying more than the face value of the bonds, I'm going to have an expense. If I end up paying less than the face value of the bonds, I'm going to have a gain. So I said expense, I meant a loss. So if I pay more than, it's a loss. If I pay less than, it's a gain. And once again, I will illustrate this to you in exercises. So I will move on to exercises now. Take care.